This book emerged from a class I teach on J. Dilla at New York University's Clive Davis Institute. Its roots go back to my time in the music business as a talent scout, record executive, and beat maker, and to a trip I made to Detroit in the summer of 1999 with my friend and colleague Chino XL to work with the producer then known as JD. But Dilla Time is journalism, not memoir. I do not consider myself an expert on J. Dilla, but a student who has spoken to the real experts, the people who lived and worked and studied with him, whom you will meet in this book. My aim was to be faithful to them and to tell their stories from each of their perspectives. The narrative is based on more than 190 interviews conducted over the course of 4 years, and the text and dialogue herein are the result of reporting and research. Where my sources' perspectives and stories conflict, I have noted that in the footnotes. James lived with that conflict, and we must too. You may read more about my process in the reporter's notes and sources section, provided as a PDF with this audiobook. James DeWitt Yancey created a succession of aliases: Silk, John Doe, JD, J. Dilla, and in Dilla Time I use them interchangeably, depending on who is speaking or thinking about him and what appellation they preferred. Mostly here, he is, as his closest friends and family called him, James. Dilla Time is not a simple biography of J. Dilla, but is about what he means in history. No one innovates and influences in a vacuum. Thus, Dilla Time follows the stories of other people, his parents and siblings, mentors and protégés, colleagues and followers, friends and lovers. Influence takes time, so this book begins before J. Dilla's birth and ends well after his death. Innovation happens with new tools, so this is a book about music-making machines. Everything happens somewhere, and thus this book is also about Detroit, its citizens, and their encounter with the machine. Thus the chapters of Dilla Time compose a grid of 2 separate but complementary tracks: the biography of J. Dilla and the people around him, and the larger context of music and musical time. I was accompanied in this latter endeavor by a vital expert, my colleague at NYU, the musicologist Jeff Peretz. When I began teaching a musical concept called Dilla Time to my students in 2014, it was Jeff who validated my argument and helped me deconstruct it. Jeff and I began formulating the musical pedagogy in this book during my Dilla course, and we developed it over time in conversations with each other, with our students and colleagues, and with other musicians. Jeff reviewed every word in the music chapters, created many of the original charts and analyses, and developed the visual language that this book uses to illustrate rhythmic concepts. The charts and graphs that accompany this book are available as a bonus PDF with this audiobook. For those who don't know much about hip-hop or J. Dilla, I offer what I hope will be both a compelling biography and a book about music that builds those concepts step by step. For those who already count themselves as informed Dilla fans, I hope Dilla Time confirms your admiration and deepens your understanding. I also reframed the discussion of J. Dilla and challenged some cliches about the man, his music, and his legacy that have ossified over the years. My students were barely in grade school when J. Dilla died. When I ask them why they've elected to take a course on him, the word that comes up most often is love. J. Dilla's music evokes feelings, and the language of feeling suffuses much of the writing about him, how Dilla felt about music and how we feel in return. There is something transcendent and evocative about his work that seemingly goes beyond analysis. What this approach possesses in spirit, it lacks in specificity. In promoting J. Dilla merely as a musical mystic, even the greatest Dillaphiles miss something crucial: what J. Dilla actually did, how he did it, and why it is important. J. Dilla's music was an act of calculation as well as feeling, 2 legitimate but different kinds of intelligence. Some of his closest collaborators agree. As DJ Jazzy Jeff told me, you can follow the method and you won't have the feeling. You can have the feeling but no success because you have no method. D'Angelo agrees that time itself can be both felt and measured. You can do both, he says. Beat machines taught us that. Thus what J. Dilla did, the instinctive and the methodical, deserves analysis, to be quantified or quantized.